Everybody, welcome to the Dare County Emergency Operations Center. I'm Drew Pearson, the Dare County Emergency Management Director. I'm going to ask Eric, can we tell if people can hear us online? Can you get a thumbs up from somebody, or
Yeah,
you're good to go?
Yeah.
And welcome to our virtual people that are joining us from afar. It's great to have you with us. With me is Eric Hayden, the warning coordination meteorologist at the National Weather Service down in Newport, Morehead City. He's got his boss here, David Glenn, the meteorologist in charge, the science officer, Ryan, and Carl is around somewhere else. We got a lot of people from the Weather Service with us. But to start off our hurricane forum, I get to go first, and I'd like to give everybody a little bit of overview about how to get ready in Dare County, North Carolina, and on the Outer Banks. And then Eric's going to come in and eliminate all the myths and rumors about the weather forecast that I'll probably cause, but he'll fix all that with some really great information on what the Hurricane Center is planning, what the Weather Service is doing, and the updates they've made with their forecast products and things like that. So does that cover everything we're going to do tonight, Eric?
Yes.
So with that, my first slide is, should I move that over there for me?
Yeah.
We love technology out here. It's got to get that. There we go. My first slide is it only takes one. And this was a forecast that came out earlier in the year, I think May of 2022. Active season, August 4th, still an active season, but a little bit less named storms, and percentages of above normal came down. And as of right now, we've been through three, and Eric and the Weather Service guys will correct me on this, but I think we're nearing a record for the time between the last named storm and the next named storm. Colin was back in July, so it's been a while, but that doesn't mean it's not going to happen, because it only takes one storm that can really ruin our days out here on the Outer Banks. So the forecast is the forecast, but always keep in mind it only takes one storm. So with that, there's 7 things I'd ask people to do. Some of them you can do right now, some of them you take a little bit of time, but the first one is determine your risk. Know what risk you're at. In our county, storm surge has the potential to impact everybody. And I'll talk a little bit more about storm surge. I'm sure Eric will as well, but storm surge and winds and the things that hurricanes and tropical storms bring impact everybody in the county. There's no getting away from it in the coastal community we live in. I ask everybody to have an evacuation plan. Dare County, the entire county is an evacuation area. And I ask you to determine where will you go and where will you stay. I've got my plan. I come here. The other half of the plan is my wife goes to Virginia. But have a plan, know what it is, and be ready to execute it. Get those disaster supplies ready. Not just for yourself, but for your entire family and your pets. Make sure you have everything you might need to get by for 3 to 5 days. And if you live in a really isolated area, maybe down on Hatteras Island, think about being by yourself a little bit longer and making sure your supplies are there if you don't evacuate. And if you do evacuate, have those supplies and take them with you. So it's not just to have in the house, it's a go kit to get ready to get up and go. Make sure you don't forget about those pets. Get an insurance checkup. If you haven't looked at your insurance policies in a long time, do it now. Most policies take 30 days to take effect, flood and homeowners, but take a look at your insurance policies and talk to your agents. Make sure you have the right insurance to cover your home, your property, and all of those things, because insurance, if you have it, is really going to be the one that helps you. Relying on other things, the government or other charities may not help you as well. So get that insurance checkup. Make sure your home's in good order. And I say strengthen your home. Make sure the windows work right. Make sure the doors close. Make sure the things around your backyard are not going to fly away and come through your window or go into your neighbor's home. That fence that's back there, make sure it's in a good order. Take a good look at your home. Make sure everything's set and ready to go. And be ready to help your neighbor. I ask anybody with special needs, we have a special medical needs register I'll talk about a little bit later, but be ready to help your neighbor. And we do that here in Dare County on the Outer Banks. We care for each other, we look after each other, but it's really important as we start to get ready to know what your neighbors are going to be able to do and what you can do to help them and what they might be able to do to help you. Bullet number 7 is, to me, really the important one. I talked about 6 other things. You can go home and you can think about it, or you might be doing them right now. But if you don't write it down and you don't know what you're going to do and you don't share that with the people you love, you're going to forget about it. And when the pressure comes, you're not going to know what you're going to do. You're going to just not be ready for it. So write down that plan, have it, talk to your family members. If you're by yourself, talk to somebody inland, talk to somebody who knows what you're going to do, and have that plan written down. So 7 simple things to do right now. We get a lot of questions about how decisions are made out here in Dare County and emergency decisions. So we put together a video. It's about 5 minutes long. I'm going to play it, and hopefully we'll answer some of those questions. But if not, we'll have time to answer other questions as we get to the end of the presentation. So video play. We put that video together hoping to explain how decisions are made here, not just here in Dare County, but across the state of North Carolina. It's pretty similar. But in Dare County, we do have evacuation zones, and we do have a campaign that is in partnership with our state partners at North Carolina Emergency Management, the Know Your Zone campaign. There's 2 zones in Dare County, A and B. A is Hatteras Island, B is everywhere else. So we tried to keep it simple. It's pretty straightforward, but you can go onto the Know Your Zone website, put your address in, and it'll call up the zone you're in, and you'll be able to look for, is it zone A that's being evacuated or zone B or both of them? And Know Your Zone is a great tool for everybody who may be new to the area and may not understand what evacuation zones are or how we do it. So Know Your Zone. Evacuation plans, I talked about it earlier and I shared that I have one. It's I come here and my wife goes to Virginia. I really mean that because everybody's got to have that plan. What are they going to do and how are they going to execute it? Life-threatening storm surge, flooding and high winds, you got to take priority over what's going on in your life. You got to get up and go. We don't order evacuations just to do it. We do it because we have to save lives and property. Have your plan ready to go, execute it quickly, take that emergency kit with you. And I can't say enough how important it is to have someplace to go that's not the shelter. Shelters are safe places. They have no amenities. They have, maybe you get a cot, maybe you'll get a halfway warm meal. You will be safe, but there's nothing there for you other than safety. So work now to find that place you're going to go. If anybody has visitors that come and visit them during the summer to enjoy the Outer Banks, give them a call when the hurricanes come in and go visit them for a while. But find that spot you're going to go. If shelters are open, they may be non-congregate, which is big gymnasiums. I'm sorry, non-congregate is in the hotel room, or a congregate shelter, which is a big gymnasium. You don't want to be in a shelter. But if you do need to get someplace safe, call us, 475-5655. That'll be in our media releases. We'll share all that information. But if you can't get to someplace safe, you need to get there, we'll get you there. But make a plan. Don't include your homes. Find someplace else to go. Great tools at readync.gov. Talked about what you need in your preparedness kits. If you go to readync.gov and the mobile version, it'll tell you where there are shelters open. It'll tell you all about how to get ready. It'll tell you what you need to have in those kits. It also gives you a link to Know Your Zone. But readync.gov. Last year it was readync.org. So if you had saved that, go back and look at it and update it to readync.gov. But a great resource for all of the things you need to get ready for just about anything, not just tropical weather, but all threats and all hazards. I talked about earlier about needing help, and if I asked you to check on your neighbors and do all that, we do have a special medical needs registry. I'm not going to play this video, but it's available to you on YouTube and on our Dare County Social Services website. And there's also a form on there that people can sign up if they know somebody who might be oxygen dependent, might need dialysis, might not be able to get in and out of their home on their own, but they might need some help doing that. They can get onto our special medical needs registry. And when they do that, our great team at our social services department stays in touch with them before, during, and after an event and make sure that they're safe and sound. So our special medical needs registry is really important for those that might need an extra hand. We talked a little bit about getting official information. I'd say you don't see social media up there. You see media outlets, but if you got your favorite social media blogger that talks to you about the spaghetti models, listen to them on the side, but go to the Hurricane Center, go to the National Weather Service Forecast Office, sign up for OBX alerts and listen to reputable media outlets. If you haven't signed up for OBX alerts, it's simple to do. You can go to www.obxalerts.com. Instructions are there. There's a video there on how to get signed up. If you want to just get them so you can get the emergency notifications when we activate for a storm, you can just send a text message of their emergency alerts, all one word, to 77295, and that'll sign you up for that. And I got to really encourage you. We do have access to the integrated public alert and warning system in Dare County, which allows us to send out wireless emergency alerts that'll reach just about any phone that's in our area, as long as you have a government alerts turned on your phone. And on an iPhone, which is the image on the left there, just got to turn government alerts on, get them turned on. And on a Android, you do it in a little bit different way. But if you don't have your government alerts turned on and you're at home at night and the tornado warning comes out and you don't have a NOAA weather radio, you're not going to hear about it. But if you haven't turned on your phone, guess what? Your phone is going to wake you up when it starts making that really enjoyable noise in the middle of the night, and it's going to get you safely. So make sure you have those government alerts turned on. We utilize it when we need to, but the Weather Service is utilizing it when your lives are really at risk to get information out. So have those government alerts turned on. And you can get information on OBX alerts at obxalerts.com, and please do sign up for those. Sorry to click too far. And we always get asked about what reentry. We order a mandatory evacuation, which we really never want to do, but we always want to get back open and back to normal as quickly as we can. But we won't do that until it's safe. And all the decisions with reentry are driven by public safety. It starts our recovery process. And when we start to reopen, it might not be like it was when you left, but we're going to start to get it on the trail to that. There may still be hazards out here. Power lines may still be down. Areas may still have water and stand on the road, but it's our process that starts us to get going. We may still have prohibitions and restrictions in place. You may be able to come back, but we may still have a curfew. You may not be able to go out at night. We may not have all the shopping centers open. Things aren't going to be perfect, but we're going to get started. And we do use priorities to get people back. Priority one is essential personnel. Like if we needed the Weather Service up there to priority one, we're going to get them up here. Let us get back to do the things we need to do. Priority two is our permanent residents and our critical businesses. We want to get our residents back so they can start to take care of their homes, get back into them, make sure everything's good. And then really so they can get back to work and start getting back to a normal life. And we know it's critical business partners to get back in, to open up the drugstores, the supermarkets, the property management companies to start getting our economy going again. Priority three is our non-resident property owners who we love. We want to get them here too, but we got to get things open for them first. And then our non-critical businesses, the restaurants, bowling alleys, the things like that are important, but not important to make sure everything is safe. Then we get the priority four, and that's our general public and visitors. People can apply for the reentry permits online. That's where we do them. We've been doing them that way since 2017, I think. But that's the website for it. Very simple to do. And if you just say, I don't want to go online, I can't go online. If you're a Dare County resident, your driver's license with a Dare County address on it will get you through the checkpoint. So a little bit about reentry. Ocean hazards. I always like to talk about ocean hazards because they take more lives across our nation than most other weather hazards. So I don't like to talk to them because they're killing people, but I like to talk about it because I want people to stop getting killed by them. And we started a Love the Beach, Respect the Ocean.com campaign to reduce lives lost to the ocean. Ocean hazards really pick up when we get a tropical event coming. And it could be a faraway event that might not even be coming to us. It could be well offshore, and the ocean conditions will change and our hazards will rise, rip currents, longshore currents, all of that. But there's a lot of information on how to stay safe at the ocean, how to love the beach and respect the ocean at that website. And anybody can sign up by sending OBX beach conditions to 77295, and they'll get an email every morning and a text message every morning about what the forecast is. And then also about 9 o'clock, they'll get a morning beach conditions report. And if things change, lifeguards will send them out as well. So a way to get, stay safe at the beach. We get asked questions about how deep it will get too. And we never know. We get great forecast products. We do have a flood inundation mapping and alerting network in North Carolina that has gauges out. All those green circles with arrows in them, the red up and down are gauges across our state where they can tell you what the water levels are. We do have one. This is one down at the Fesden Center that the top picture is what happened when the wind blew the water out down in Buxton. The bottom picture is what happened when the wind came back at the Cape Hatteras Secondary School. So people can sign up and get alerts about the water from the gauges around the county at fimennc.gov, and they can know what the water conditions are doing, whether they're going to be seeing changes or dropping off. So it's a good way to know how deep it's getting, in addition to the forecast products that the Hurricane Center and the Weather Service puts out. And we did expand our Fireman Gauge network. The county invested about almost $30,000 into 11 new gauges. The black stars are the existing gauges and the red stars are the new ones we put in to give us a little bit better sense of what the water levels are doing around, so people can follow those and get that information. You also wanted to let people know what it actually means when the Weather Service says that it's going to be 2 to 4 feet above ground when storm surge comes. And I know Eric will talk about that here in a little bit, but we did start a storm surge awareness project, and these interpretive displays and poles are around our county now. We've got 27 of them that are going to be in Dare County, and the National Hurricane Center has installed one of our poles at the National Hurricane Center as a best practice. But if you haven't seen one, they're out and about in the community. The one that was on the background pictures down at the Rodanthe Beach access, the one where just to the right of the storm surge at the top is Bay Drive, Jeanette's Pier, and then the beach access. So they're out there. Take a look at them, and I think you'll learn a little bit more about what it means when the forecast says 2 to 4 or 5 to 7, or God forbid 10 to 13. It'll tell us how deep it's going to get, and you'll be able to understand a little bit better. I close with these two short videos. One is Don't Be Tom. The other one is Be Debbie. And these are life experiences from folks down on the Gulf Coast during hurricane. I think it was Michael at Mexico Beach, but Don't Be Tom. I'll play that. I never want anybody to be Tom. Debbie. We haven't seen the storm that Tom and Debbie saw when they experienced that, but that doesn't mean we won't. It just means we haven't seen it yet. So we have just a few run from the water, hide from the wind, know before you go, and sign up for Outer Banks beach alerts to get that critical information to help you make decisions. So Eric, that's my piece. Awesome. We see if there are any questions from the.
Yeah, so what we'll do, welcome to the virtual audience as well as for folks in person. As we kind of transition, if you're watching us from home, ask the question in the chat, the question part, and we'll address those as well. Any questions from the audience with what Drew had presented so far? So a quick question for the audience. Raise your hand if you've lived in this area or the Outer Banks, and you can comment from home virtually for more than 10 years. Left here. So we have some folks. How about more than 5 years? And then more than 2 years. So we've got some newer folks to the community. We'll see if we've got any questions online before we proceed.
Did you have one here? Pardon?
Did you have a question?
I was going to ask Drew,
Yeah.
I'll take care of it later.
And we do have some folks online. Let's see if we've got any questions from you all. Not yet. Don't be shy if you've got any. Great. So Drew, thank you so much for that presentation. The presentation I'm going to go over is going to cover some of what Drew did. So we're going to repeat some of it because it's worth repeating. And then we're going to go through some of it a little quicker because you did a great job with the planning and the preparation part. So we have some new folks that have lived here for a while. We have some folks with some experience. And one thing I want to highlight, those videos were very powerful, what you just saw there. You can't escape that imagery, right? The water coming up, the devastation. And I would argue, in some sense, we're more at risk than those huge storms they get down in the Gulf because we can have storm surge issues 5, 6, 7 feet. I'm 6 feet. I wish I was taller. I like playing basketball. I'm 6 feet. We can have water higher than I am from storms that are just category 1 storms. We're going to talk about that in a second. So don't focus on just the category. We're going to talk a lot about water because that's the biggest issue, not just because we're here in Dare County, but with any tropical cyclone. I'm going to talk a little bit about that, who we are as far as the Weather Service goes, and also some of the aspects that we cover. So our office is located down in Newport. We say Morehead City because that's what most folks are familiar with. That whole area shaded in yellow is our area that we cover. Out toward the central part of the state, Raleigh covers that area. Down south is Wilmington. But you'll notice that we go out into the water. So if you've been on a boat, you've been to the beach, like Drew mentioned with the rip current forecasting, we do forecasts for those areas as well. We are open 24/7. A lot of us are here today, so there's obviously people back at the office working, and we do rotating shifts. So a day like Florence or Isaias or any of the recent storms were all hands on deck. That's what Florence looked like the morning, a couple mornings, I think, prior to landfall. So we're there 24/7 to support the community. Our main mission is protection of life and property. And we do that from those shifts that cover the office and the area year round. This is our website. For those that are in person, you will definitely want to take one of these magnets. If you're watching from home, any event you come to with the Weather Service, you're going to have these magnets. You may also see them in the community, the visitor centers, restaurants, they're around, so definitely look for them. Those magnets have everything you need in terms of our website and social media. We also have the QR code at the top, so you can just scan that on the next couple websites or slides I'm going to show you, and that will direct you to our website. A lot of good information on there. You can get a forecast, but also some of the preparedness information I'm going to cover here coming up. Speaking of preparedness information, anytime we have a big storm, not just tropical, winter weather, severe weather, we have a briefing on the bottom of the page. If you scroll down to the bottom, it is listed there. That is on our website. You'll have a lot of information on the storm itself. A lot of the graphics I'm talking about will be on that briefing. It's what we share with public officials, and it's your information as well. So certainly head to the bottom of the page for that. We really do like social media as a way of spreading our message. As Drew mentioned, there's a lot of forecasts out there, and we appreciate folks with being interested in weather, but we really want you to follow official sources of information. What I mean by that is our website is great, but there's a lot of information on it. You have to kind of play with it, bookmark it, and work your way through. Our social media is where we wave our hands and say, you need to pay attention to this. We get paid the same if it's sunny out or if there's a Category 5 hurricane. So when we say catastrophic, when we use big words, it's because we mean it. We did that tweet the morning of Florence on the left. We were getting calls in the office from the media. We were getting calls from the community asking, should I come back? Florence is now just a 1. Should I come on back to the area? Do I not have to worry about it anymore? Do not let your guard down. Our impacts have not changed. Catastrophic flooding. So that's where we use the strong language. Social media is where we wave our hands and say you should pay attention to this. We're on things like Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. I'll direct your attention to YouTube. For the online audience, please share this information. Things like tonight's hurricane forum, webinars that we record for big weather events, that's all on our YouTube page. So we use it differently depending on the media itself. This is one of my favorite graphics. We use this all the time. The time to prepare is now. If I gave you the talk in March, April, May, October, the title would be the same. The time is to, really is to prepare is now. What you're looking at is a graph showing the frequency of hurricanes and tropical storms in that darker red, and then just hurricanes in yellow. You'll notice a couple things. It's a long season. We've had storms as early as May in our area, Tropical Storm Arthur 2 years ago. So we can get storms very, very early in the season. But traditionally, they do peak about the last couple weeks of August now through about September 10th. So that is traditionally the peak of hurricane season. Some of our bigger storms have been around that September 10th peak. The reason why I mentioned this, I still remember many years ago, 4 years ago now, Florence doing a talk like this. It was late August, and the gentleman said, wow, it looks like we're gonna make it through hurricane season. We're all right, right? And you all know, hey, we're not through, but a lot of people that move to the area don't realize once they get into September, we're just getting going. That the season is very, very long. And we've had storms like Sandy well into the fall. So just because the calendar turns toward first day of school's coming up, just because vacations are winding down doesn't mean we're through hurricane season. It takes a long time to get through the fall. So that's the message we want you to educate your neighbors. A lot of you here in the room are shaking your head. You've been through it, even for those that have been here just a couple of years. That's the kind of information we want you to share. Long season, really should be prepared, preparing early in the season. It's not too late, but we're getting close. Lo and behold, it looks like the activity is going to pick up here over the next week. Early part of September, just in time for the peak of season. So it's not too early, but your window is, or not too late, your window is certainly closing. So it's a long season, Eric, but do we actually get hit? Should I really worry about this? Do we really get storms here? I've been here last year or so, we've been all right. Our stretch of coastline is the most frequently impacted stretch of coastline in the entire United States. Again, our coastline, most frequently impacted stretch in the entire United States. Recently, they've had a lot of activity in the Gulf, but as you average things out, we do get hit often, so it is something that we need to pay attention to. Drew did a great job on the preparation part, so I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this. What I would tell you is your homework is put it in action. Look at ready.gov, look at the North Carolina site, look at our site. They all have similar information, however you want to get it. Google FEMA and hurricane preparedness. There's plenty of information out there. There's really no reason you shouldn't have the resources at your fingertips. If you go to our website, again, the QR code or weather.gov/Morehead City, our boss always likes this joke. If it's the weather you love, it's weather.gov. So that's just an easy way to remember weather.gov. If you just put /hurricane prep on there, a lot of this information links back to what Drew was talking about. Know your zone, all that. So I want to focus on 3 things of preparedness. Number 1 is risk. What is your risk from storms? And that's something you think about today. Are you by the water? Are you in a low elevation? Are you higher elevation? Are you inland? A lot of people think about weather. What about your health and your family state? Are you on dialysis? Do you have oxygen in the home? And electricity is a big deal. If I lose electricity in my house, it's an inconvenience. For you, it might be life-threatening. So your vulnerability is not just weather related, it's how is your household. So think about that today. He mentioned Feynman, great site for modeling, what the level of the water is. Also a great site for your vulnerability with inundation mapping. So if you just Google NC flood maps or that Feynman website Drew mentioned, it is phenomenal. It will show you your vulnerability in terms of flooding. And again, give you a general idea of what your risk level is. So once you determine your vulnerability, then your other steps become a little more clear. As far as a hurricane kit goes, we always stress before at least 3 days, but we're really pushing people to at least a week of supplies, talking about food, water, and medicine. What would you need to survive without electricity? Include your whole family, including pets and things of that nature. I'm not going to go through everything like cash on hand, gas tanks full. There's a lot of good information on our preparedness site, FEMA, the North Carolina site. It's all out there. But what I want to emphasize is, if you are one of, thinking that, hey, I'm in an area that's not vulnerable and I'm going to stay, then maybe your kit should be more than a week. That, if you're thinking that you're going to stay, which we don't tell you to stay or go, you really want to make sure you have a good kit to be on your own. And again, make sure you include everybody in your family if you've got pets for them as well. So determine your vulnerability. And again, it's not just weather, it's how you are in the household. Make your kit at least a week is what we would advise. And the third step is your evacuation route. I do want to make one more point about the kit. We do these forums because they're discussions, and I want to hear more from you. I'm going to ask you to share some of your experiences. The fire chief down in the town of Beaufort a couple of years ago at one of these had mentioned that, the last couple of years have been crazy. Some folks might not be able to go out this weekend and get everything they need, right? Financially speaking, or even wrapping their head around what do I need to get? Take it in steps. A couple canned goods this weekend. Next week, you add a case of water. The week after that, you add more non-perishables or things to cook with, whatever you need for your kid. So spread it out. Don't think you need to do it all at once. I will say we are getting close to the peak, so ramp it up. This is definitely more for, spreading it out through the season. But we have all seen what has happened with supply chain issues, right? I can guarantee as we get, and we don't have any stock in water or anything, as we get towards September and things increase like they probably will, places will run out. So when that storm becomes a named storm and it's 7-8 days away from us, places will run out of things. So get it now, don't wait until it gets closer in terms of your kid. So kind of ramp things up here over the next week or so. Last step, your evacuation plan. Like Drew says, his wife goes up to Virginia, he's here. Your plan may change. My plan was, 3 younger kids and a wife and Rocky, 18-and-a-half-year-old Rocky. So I got a cat. We got to think about hotels and places like that. My parents live south of Baltimore, so that was plan A. And plan B was South Carolina. Well, plan A is gone. My parents are down now by us. So now my plan is mom and dad and family go to the mountains or South Carolina. So your plan adjusts. And you have to take everybody into that plan. Where would you go? We say not just inland, but away from the storm. I like a north or south route and an inland route so that you can be either away from the coast or north or south and just away from it. You can't just go to Raleigh and say, hey, I'm inland, I don't have to worry about it. They can still have power issues. They can still have flooding. So really would advise 3 routes. North, south, and inland is what we would recommend. And again, places with hotels that accept pets or, things like that. And I love Drew's point. This is, again, why we do these forums. I'm not smart enough to think about getting your canned goods this week and your water, but that's an excellent point. With all our relatives that come visit us from upstate New York and New Jersey, it's great to call them up and, visit inland in the fall. It's gorgeous. Maybe you can see some of the leaves changing and stuff like that. So that's a really good idea. Family members or relatives farther inland. So Drew mentioned this. He knows I love food. I love all the establishments on the Outer Banks. So this is probably my favorite slide since there's spaghetti on there. So the graphic on the left, those are many simulations of what a storm could possibly do. You may have heard of them as spaghetti models. They don't serve a lot of purpose in terms of planning. And what I mean by that is just there's a whole bunch of scenarios, and the one you look at is the one that affects you, right? What we really want you to focus on are the men and women from the Hurricane Center that make that graphic on the right. You've seen it via TV, you've seen it on social media. We don't just say that. That is the most accurate and most consistent forecast. I can be the most accurate forecast if I change every day, right? Hey, I got it right 12 hours before it hit. But how does that help Drew with evacuations if we say Charleston, Delaware, Cape Hatteras, Cape Cod, if we're all over the place? So the most, and this is statistically accurate and consistent forecast is from the Hurricane Center. So that's why we want you to use that. I've got to say that, right? I'm from the Weather Service, I can't say. So we like to back it up with statistics. This is a graphic comparing Floyd in '99 to Dorian in 2019. What you're looking at with a huge, huge circle in 1999 was our average error 3 days out for just the center of the storm. So 1999, if I was in this position with Drew, I would say, hey, we're 3 days out from this storm, Hurricane Floyd. The center could hit somewhere from southeast Georgia all the way up through Virginia Beach. Huge, huge area. Because of advances in technology, our experience in 2019, now I can tell Drew the center of Dorian will be somewhere over southeast North Carolina. Huge, huge improvement. So we've gotten a lot better with the track forecasting, but there are still some things we struggle with. Things like intensity, things like that can change up to landfall. So there's still improvements to be made, but as far as track forecasting goes, a vast improvement. So most consistent and accurate forecast is from the Hurricane Center. So please, please, please share that. And I mentioned that because of things like this. We're going to kind of transition into some of the hurricane products. The first one is this tropical weather outlook. If it's hurricanes you love, it's hurricanes.gov for that website. This is a very useful one. It's issued 4 times a day. It's already pretty useful now, highlighting areas of potential development. This will show you a low, medium, and high chance over the next 5 days that there could be tropical cyclone formation. So it's a good 30-second. You check it once a day and, hey, I got to be paying attention. This will probably become more active here over the next couple of weeks, so you definitely want to take a look at that. As we get closer to the storm, becoming a named storm or potentially could be a storm, it will get a forecast cone. Is everybody familiar with this graphic? Tell me, so on this graphic on the right, it's Florence. So say I live in southern South Carolina down by Charleston on this forecast. Am I going to see any issues with Florence on this graphic? So I live in probably. So I live in southern South Carolina. Should I be concerned or don't worry about it? I'm out of that shaded area. Should I worry about it or why should I worry about it?
You got water rise.
Water rise?
That's there. You're going to have some residual winds that you're not actually pinpointing yet. And you don't know that it's necessarily going to stay directly in that track.
That's a good point. So he said you don't necessarily know it's going to stay in that track. Any other reasons why I should be paying attention even if I'm not in that path? That's right. It could change. The path could change. Did you know that this graphic only shows the center of the storm where it's most likely to go? And the center is not a dot on the map. We were just on the edge of Florence and Isaias and other storms, and we had impacts up here. So this graphic shows the most likely area for just the center of the storm. It's not I'm in the path, I need to pay attention. Oh, I'm out of it. Don't worry about it. A center of the storm is not just, storm's not just a dot on the map. Impacts occur well away from it. So if you're anywhere in the general vicinity of this storm, you need to pay attention to the forecast itself. And like this gentleman said, this is all based on statistics. If you have noticed, the last couple of years, it's gotten more narrow and more narrow. It's not based on the current storm. It's not based on how large or small the storm is. It's all based on error. And we've continue to get more accurate and more accurate. So the path is more narrow, but a third of the time it could still go out of it. So bottom line with this, it's not I'm in, I need to pay attention, I'm out, don't worry about it. If you're on this one, if you're anywhere from southern New Jersey down through like the northern panhandle of Florida, you should be paying attention. It's not an in or out.
That doesn't show the wobble factor that you're going to have. Is the center of the core comes up through that graphic right now, you're going to have a certain amount of wobble involved in that.
You can.
It's going to be, if it biases itself to the south side of that, then you're going to have a much different impact and a much different.
You might have to teach this class next. So he makes a good point. So if the storm tracks the left side, and Carl does a good job, we got to get one of his graphics for tomorrow on this. If the track was on the left side of this, more folks to the right of it are going to be impacted. If you're to the right, it affects people differently where it hits. So tropical weather is not just this, easy thing to explain. So we're really trying to get people to the impacts, and that's what we'll end with. These next two graphics I'm going to go through kind of quickly, but I just want you to be aware of them. They're in our briefings. They're on the Hurricane Center website. Time of arrival, earliest, reasonable. This is, hey, when should I be done my plans? When should I evacuate? When should I board up? Whatever I need to do, when should I complete this by? So in this case, it was by Wednesday evening with Hurricane Florence. So I look at this, kids are gone. I don't have to worry about family anymore, but I'm still messing with stuff in my yard, bringing in lawn furniture, making sure there's nothing outside. And as long as I'm done by this time, I should be okay. And then the other graphic is, well, when is it actually going to get here? When are the winds actually going to pick up? And that's what the most likely is for these two graphics. So very, very useful for your planning. And when they plan evacuations and things like that, they'll look at these types of products to make those decisions. So everybody's favorite scale, the Saffir-Simpson scale. So it goes 1 to 5. It shows hurricane strength, but it is only based on wind. Did you know that it says nothing about rain, storm surge, how large the storm is, how slow moving it is. It's going to sit over us for 4 days. So whenever the newspaper or media asks me, what's the biggest misconception with tropical weather? I always say this: do not make your decisions just based on the category of the storm. How many times have you heard somebody say, I'm not gonna leave unless it's at least a 2. I'm not gonna leave unless it's a 3. Oh, I've been through a 2 before. I've been through a 3. This is just based on wind. It doesn't say what side of the storm you get hit on. There's just so many factors. So we're really trying to get people away from category and go toward impacts. So do you remember Irene? How about Matthew on Hatteras Island? They remember Irene. 2010 to 2019, we had a lot of just ones. And so going back to Drew's video showing Hurricane Michael, what is it, 4 or 5? I mean,
5 on Mexico Beach.
Crazy storm. Hopefully we never see it. But we can be caught off guard when it's just a 1, it's just offshore, and all the water's pushed toward the one side of Pamlico Sound, and then it rushes back. And we can get 4, 5, 6 feet of water like anything. Hermine, Florence, and especially from here south, Dorian, Hatteras Island, and Ocracoke. So water's what kills. From the 60s to 2012, talking about 90% of deaths were water related. It's not that, a tree can't fall on your home or your vehicle, but statistically, less than 10% of deaths were wind related. So water, water, water. But you say, Eric, it is 2022. Do we have new graphics? And we do. Through last year, still water, water, water. We've made huge improvements with storm surge. Campaigns like Drew with the polls showing people what it actually means. Storm surge watches and warnings, inundation maps. We'll talk about that. Where you can help us is getting out across the message not to drive through flooded roads. I know we don't have a lot of topography here, but we still have depth of water issues, and that's where people are dying. It's not that the water comes up all of a sudden. Statistically, it's in vehicles. More than half the deaths are in vehicles. So that's how we're going to end. Water, 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 and then we'll talk about the wind because it really is all the impacts. A couple slides. This is Florence. You all might, you remember Florence, but wasn't as big of a deal up here. But just to your south and west, we had 20 to 30 inches of rain. You might say, well, Eric, why are you showing me this graphic? I'm a big sports fan. They always say, a difference in a game of inches and this and that. Weather is a difference of miles. If this storm jogged 50 miles to the north and east, this is you. This is you. And as accurate as we have become with the forecast track, just a deviation to the right side of the cone, still in it, is a big deal. So this can be you. And if you get this type of flooding, you have a lot of flooding because of your lower elevation and your high dune structures. I left the river flooding in here for your evacuation, and then you decide to come back. Be safe when you come back. Don't go through all this preparedness and you pick your favorite relative in Asheville to visit and then rush back and go around a flooded road or a barricade. Listen to the officials. If the road is closed, just stay put where you are, nice and safe. So that's why we lived that one in here. I also leave this one in here. You might say, Eric, we don't have the topography here in Dare County. We don't have this type of speed of water. You do a storm surge, but you're driving around the country road, you're coming back east of I-95 and you see water across the road and you say, oh, I got a 4-wheel drive pickup truck. I've got the lift kit. I'm up nice and high. I can get through that water. It takes 18 inches of water to move your vehicle. So not a lot of water of depth to move it. And then you don't know if the road is there. That's where the biggest issue is, especially at night. Again, you see water across the road. You're like, you don't know how deep it is. You don't know if the road is there. So really hammering this home when you're coming back or you decide to leave and it's kind of in the middle of the storm or something like that. Don't do that. Flooding is a huge deal. 5 days out with Hurricane Florence, the National Hurricane Center was off by 5 miles. We're not going to get better than that. The track, we'll continue to try, but what we're trying to get better at is messaging. 16 of the 17 deaths, I think it was in the Carolinas or North Carolina specifically, were in vehicles, flooding. That is preventable. It's like having a smoke detector in your home. Preventable. Don't cross flooded roads. If you go ahead.
Many of those fatalities were 3, 4, 5 days after the storm was gone. Right. So it's farmers who wanted to get back to their land. Every day that they miss is money that they're not getting. They drive back, they take that risk, and that's what happened.
So many days after. So water, very, very powerful. Now, where we do get rapidly flowing water, and especially water level rises, is certainly with storm surge. Wind is an issue, yes, but this is probably our biggest issue up here. With the shallow nature of the sound, any type of water that pushes the water westward usually can come back. And you know that from the pictures Drew showed you, seeing, extremely low tide or no water and then coming back. But I think the point really needs to be hammered home. This is not category dependent. There's a lot of factors that go into it: storm size, direction, location of the storm, how strong is it before it approaches the coast. So very vulnerable to this. A lot of folks know that, but some don't. So these are some pictures just to our south in Ocracoke, and I know Hatteras Island was the same. I mean, 4 to 7 feet, again, that's above my height. And we're talking 15 to 30 minutes, like quick. That's our biggest issue. And the concern I have is just that people won't think it can happen with just the one, like we saw with Dorian. So unfortunately, we have examples to point that out. There's been a lot of improvements, Drew, with the community efforts to, the inundation levels on the right, to get that on a pole. Like, what does that actually mean? So we talk about above ground level. We're talking about low-lying areas near bodies of water, like where the poles are, and it's normally dry, no tidal issues, and it's 3, 4, 6 feet above that location. That's what that inundation map will show. That's a worst case scenario. What it's showing is somewhere in that area that could happen. Not the whole area will see it, but we want you to leave. We don't tell you to leave. We want you to be safe and to plan for the worst so that you can come back and say, the water wasn't that high and you're alive. That's what we want. We don't, want you fooling around with that. Storm surge watches and warnings, we will issue those. When the level is expected to be 3 feet or higher, you'll get those on your phone. And Drew mentioned the government alerts. If you're like my parents or me, as long as you don't get down into your phone and turn something off, you should have it on. If you need somebody to show you that, we can help you. Anybody in your family, if they're more knowledgeable on the phone, get them to show you that. But as long as you don't go in there and purposely turn it off, it should be on. But it is a good thing to make sure. So water, heavy rain, you get flash flooding. We're a low elevation with the dunes. Be careful when you're coming back. Said that with river flooding, we cover storm surge. Rip currents, why do we have rip currents on here? Drew talked about it a little bit, but why would I put rip currents on with hurricanes? Anybody know other than what it says up there? So we like to say well before, well after, and well away from. So we'll deal with the well before and well after. You've spent the big bucks. You're down here for a week at the beach, right? And the storm's going to hit Friday, and you're Saturday to Saturday like everybody else, right? You're going to get in the water Sunday and Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday because it's beautiful out. And then when Mr. Drew in the county says it's time to leave, you're going to leave because the hurricane's coming. Well, the Sunday and the Monday with the beautiful weather, you have swells well ahead of the storm. That's an issue. After the storm leaves, the water doesn't just calm down. You have issues. And then the most dangerous, the storm like Lorenzo killed more people on our coast than any storm in 2019, including Dorian. We had 4 to 7 feet of storm surge with Dorian, and we did not lose any lives. And we lost more lives from Lorenzo. Do you remember Lorenzo? Did you evacuate from Lorenzo? 2,000 miles away. Large storm, powerful, beautiful October stretch of weather. It doesn't look ominous. It looks great out. It's very, very nice weather, but you can have strong swells from that. So when the red flags are flying, when you get your alerts from Dare County, when we show graphics like this, that's why. So we include that information in our briefings, and that's why. When it's especially highly populated weekend or it's going to be out there. Help us share that message. It'll be on social media. We always try to push people to swim at beaches with lifeguards. You're just at much better shape with them there. They can point out the rips and you're generally much more safe. The other one is the actual rip current itself doesn't pull you under, it pulls you out.
So we try to do a lot of education in the schools that your natural reaction if you're being pulled out and mom and dad are telling you to get closer is to fight it. But if you just go left or right, swim parallel, however you need to remember you're out of it. And the last one is I've got a 14, 11, and 8-year-old. They know how to swim and they have a boogie board. It's not a life jacket, but let's think about in life when we've had crazy situations happen to us. You panic sometimes. You get farther out. You can't stand anymore. Mom and dad are saying, come on, you're too far out. You forget that you know how to swim. If you just have that boogie board, you can sit on it for a second. Just think, what did dad say? What did Mr. Drew say? What did Mr. David say? Swim left or right. If you're on the beach and they're struggling, you can direct them where to go. So again, these are preventable deaths. Rip currents have always been around, but it's just something we need to continue to educate, and especially people that are new to the area and are visiting that have not been here before. Tornadoes, they can occur with any tropical system, not just hurricanes. Tropical storm Hermine, we had some bad tornadoes. This is an image I'll never forget during Dorian. The first outer bands of rain coming on shore. This is Bogue Inlet Pier down by us. We just had done a webinar for the emergency managers. And I come out and I see that on camera, a surfline camera, and I couldn't believe it. I thought it was like Oklahoma. I mean, we just don't see tornadoes like that on camera. And that was some of the damage down at Emerald Isle. But it can occur well before the storm arrives. So remember that path map I showed you, and the storm's going to get here at this time? A hurricane is not a dot on a map. They're hundreds of miles across. So just because the center gets here tomorrow afternoon doesn't mean you're not going to have impacts earlier. So pay attention to those time of arrival. When are the winds going to pick up? If you're deciding to leave, leave. Don't make the decision as those first bands are getting here, because you might be dealing with tornadoes. And just because you go up to Richmond and you're far away from the storm doesn't mean you're out of the woods. They can occur well away from the center, not only in terms of arrival, but the landfall of Florence was down by Wrightsville Beach, and 3-4 days later they had tornadoes up toward Richmond. So keep that in mind. Before I go to this slide, at this point in the talk, I always feel like, man, we're throwing a lot at you, all these things that can happen. And they can, but I like to talk about control. You don't have any control over how large the storm is, how long it sits here, what it's going to do. These are just things that can happen and you should be aware of. But you do have control over your kit. You do have control over your evacuation routes and things like that. So kind of keep that in mind as we go through these. Who remembers Hurricane Arthur in 2014? Not the tropical storm a couple years ago. And this is a little bit of a trick question because you might remember it more here on the Outer Banks. So it was a Category 2 storm, landfall by Cape Lookout, fast moving and smaller storm. So for the majority of our area, not a big deal. Here, bigger deal. You had pretty good winds and some surge, but still, you may or may not remember. It was a Category 2 storm. Do you remember Irene?
No.
So you do.
Yes.
Are you sure it's just a 1 though? Do you remember Irene? Were you here? You remember Irene. It's just a 1 though.
I've been here all my life.
You've been here all your life. And she remembers Irene because it was a much larger storm, very slow moving, no trickery. It hit by Cape Lookout, but not just the Outer Banks were hit. The whole area had a very, very large wind field. We had flooding. So again, we've had a lot of just 1s. Think about Florence and Dorian. Yes.
Irene basically pushed water up into the left of the sound, and when it came back with a vengeance.
It was a vengeance. It was
quite deep when it went back.
So virtual audience, recorded audience, a lot of water, and it was just a 1.
Right.
So again, this is probably our biggest issue. If we have a high-end category storm and people focus on the number, they're going to think it's really bad. My bigger concern is the ones that are a lower number or strengthen as they approach, being caught off guard. That definitely, Drew showed this. We don't spend a lot of time on this. This is the latest outlook. The reason why we don't spend a lot of time on it is because he had it on the slide. It just takes 1 storm. It's not that it's not accurate. It's not that it probably won't be an above average season, but what are you going to do with that? If we could have the wimpiest predicted storm year on the history of all hurricanes that have ever happened. And if we get that 1, it's a big deal. So it's not a slogan that we just toss around, but it does just take 1 storm. So please, prepare each and every year, no matter what the outlook says, kind of getting away from that. So what can you do now? We threw a lot at you. We threw some websites. What you can do now is share this information. We have a smaller group here tonight. A lot of folks are enjoying the last couple days before school, back to school night in the county. Share this. Don't keep it to yourself. Share it with people in your family, your neighbor, new folks coming on down. This is recorded. Dare County will have it on their YouTube channel, or they'll put it out. It's going to be on our YouTube channel. Share it, share it, share it. If you're just joining us, or you say, wow, I really want somebody to see this, we're going to be down in Buxton tomorrow evening at 6. Come on down or see it virtually. It's going to be online as well. Talk about things like, your kit, assessing your risk. Try not to focus on, the category, shift your focus to the impacts. And the last one, don't forget about after the storm. Ryan talked about a little bit about this with flooding. We've had deaths from carbon monoxide poisoning. So if you're going to have a generator, know how to use it. Don't put it in an enclosed space. If you're going to get up and take those tree branches down or fix your roof, know how to use a ladder safely. Cardiovascular issues. We've had some deaths after the storm. Don't let your guard down just because the storm is over. So we've got a lot of folks from the Weather Service here. So they'll take any of the real hard questions. If we got any ones online, we'll make sure they get that. That's my email. If you want to talk like this in your community, please let us know. We're always looking to get out there. So just as we kind of wrap things up, not to pick on anybody, but you said you've lived here a long time. We've got anybody have an experience or they're willing to share what you would do again? Like, I really would do this every time for a storm, or what you wouldn't do again. Hey, I learned my lesson. I shouldn't do this again. Some of the ones in the past, we had it on a slide, cash on hand, power's out, having, set amount of cash is a real good idea. We say this all the time, making sure you're fueled up. Long lines at gas stations, they may not be open because of power. So we talk about the kit for 7 days, but anything you'd be willing to share your experiences with storm surge, being caught off guard, anything for the audience. And if not, that's okay too. But we learn from you and the community learns from you, not just from hearing me talk. So anything good or bad you've learned from the hurricanes you've been through.
I was in Virginia and there was a category 1. I forget what the storm was, and we evacuated, and a lot of our neighbors didn't because it was a 1. But it had rained so much before the hurricane that the ground was saturated. And we were in Virginia with those tall pine trees, and we came back after 5 days, and the folks who stayed were really sad. It was the family next door. They had a huge tall pine tree fall on the house. And then there they were having to run in the middle of the storm to another house because the rain was coming in. And so, like you said, it's not just the number, it's the other factors that go with it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. You're just repeating because I think it's a great message. It's not just the number, and there's other factors. Like you mentioned, with the saturated ground, more trees can fall. And I still vividly remember this in Florence. People telling me after the storm that, had they known the experience they went through, they would never, ever stay again. And it wasn't that they didn't make it. It wasn't that it was the hearing the wind, having a tree issue or some other issue, and you're on your own, that the first responders there where they need to be and stay safe, that if you have an emergency, you're in the middle of a storm, so you're not going to be able to get that help right away. And it can be scary, this situation. So it's not just getting through it, but it's the traumatic impact, especially if you have younger kids. It can be traumatic. So better to be safe than sorry.
I've never stayed.
Never stayed. Yeah.
Never
Good
stayed.
for you.
Yeah.
And I've been through the earliest hurricane I remember, I was young then, was Donna
Okay.
in 1960.
Hazel.
54 was Hazel.
Yeah, Donna was.
So Donna, yeah.
That was the first one I can remember, and I was young because my brother just turned 62. He was 3 months. No, he was just an infant baby. He was born in August.
Yeah.
So I remember that. But we always left. And some people ask me, "How did your house survive?" I said, "I don't know. I ain't been back to it yet." And, I just leave and never. I've been through all the hurricanes, And I live in a flood-prone area.
Okay.
On Roanoke Island,
Okay.
which I think all of them mostly flood-prone. We are mainly flood-prone because we're down there by the new bridge. We're in that area. I live
Okay.
in that area. But I just don't stay, and I'm gonna never stay. I don't know where I'm going, but
Yeah.
I'll make that decision next week, I guess. Where I'm.
Hopefully not. Hopefully not. So
Yeah, I'm gonna make
always
one.
left. Any
Yeah.
experiences, any place, any times you've been to a place, you say, I'll do this again, or I'll pack something different. Do you pack anything, before you leave, any things that could get messed up in a storm, or any tips on that?
I take medical records,
Okay.
house insurances and stuff like that, life insurances.
Sure.
Just
So
things
important
like that.
documents.
Car, your car stuff, and you just, those are the things I would take.
Yeah. And you're the most important person, not
Yeah.
the house,
Nope.
not, so
Nope. I'll find some place to live, but,
that's a great point.
yeah, I have to have that, and making sure, and I've just made sure that my policy is all paid up. I've been to Farm Bureau. I've made sure everything was taken care of now,
Yeah.
so.
That's great. Making sure insurance is updated. We always tell folks, for flood insurance, some of those things takes 30 days. So
Right.
get that stuff in order, bring your important documents and just leave. You can
Just leave,
just leave.
just leave.
Yeah.
I'll get my canned food. I have that already packed.
Yeah. And especially, and if you're just planning to leave, then, your kit doesn't have to be super big, because if it's going to be anything worth preparing for, you're out of here.
Yeah,
So you don't have
because
to.
it's just me.
Yeah. Very good.
I think the other thing is that a lot of people are dependent, the house is all secured and that sort of thing. And that's fine. You get your windows down, the doors fixed, all that kind of stuff. How many people have a propane bottle? And propane bottles are going to float and they're going to go away, especially the great big ones that are loaded up. And that's not a source of power for a generator at all. Even though it may be what you expect to happen, it's not going to be here.
Yeah.
And back to Irene, we were in a house and my house is elevated a little bit. And wife got me up and she said, hey, you got to come see this. And a 2-foot wall of water had just come in from the sound through the canals, and it was ripping down the road. And I thought, that's the backside that we never think about. We always think about it coming in
Sure.
and not on it coming back. And that was big. And my very first recollection of a hurricane down here was Hazel. And that was not fun. I was too young to remember.
Yeah.
Enough about it scared the bejesus out.
Let's see, I don't remember that.
Yeah, that was a long time ago.
Yeah.
But I really like the information that's moving around in here this evening and the presentations that are going on, because they're causing me to think a little bit differently. They're causing me to take into account things that I missed in the past, but it's given me a better way to outline what I have to do. And I think that's really the bottom line here.
I'm just going to see if there's any, so we still have pretty much everybody on that logged on before. So anybody from the virtual audience, love to hear from you. Any shared experiences or any questions you have for us, be happy to take them for now. And like I said, please share this for everybody that may have missed it. We know it's a busy night. We're heading toward back to school. All the parents are excited. The kids have a few more days of fun left. So we know it's rounding out the summer, but certainly not rounding out the season. So I don't see any questions. Let me just double check. So appreciate everybody joining us. Ask a question now if you've got one. Really appreciate you sharing your experiences from, this one was up toward Virginia, but that could be applicable anywhere, been here for so long, and just leave. And then the surge comment, it's not just the storm coming, but commonly the backside is what gets us. So.
Yeah, I think it's a good point about things changing too. This is an interesting area of the country because as storms move up the coast, they become what we call extratropical. And when that happens, things change in the forecasts very quickly. So one thing I'd like to comment on, we talked about going to social media to see what we want you to look at, but make sure that timestamp too, because sometimes that social media is circulating around and you're getting something. We've seen in the data that at 48 hours before the storm, we get the peak of our engagement on social media. And the way social media works is what gets the most engagement keeps getting put on your timeline. So you could be looking at something that's a day old. So make sure to check the timestamp on the top, because things will change in that. And as that storm is evolving, even as it's coming over, if it's starting to go extratropical, those winds might move from the right side of the storm to the left. And then it's a completely different area that we're looking at. So stay on top of that forecast, even as you think, you've got everything, in your head of what the storm is going to do. It's going to just keep changing and keep evolving as it moves. The hand up there.
So Keith, I see your hand is raised. I'm going to go ahead and unmute you. So raise your hand if you didn't mean to do that. And then you should be able to talk now, Keith. So the floor is yours. What do you have for us?
Well, I very much appreciate this presentation. It's made us think a lot about things. And as far as the kit, that we've heard this before, but it's good to reinforce it. And we're just a family that has, we know people have experienced the Category 1 hurricanes, and they say they'll never do it again. So we're just, we're hoping to learn more, and this has been a good learning experience. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I think, a lot of stuff Drew shared is county specific, and it's just great resources. So next step is to sign up for some of those alerts and look at some of those information. Do you want to mention the guides?
Yeah, on the tables here, you have a hurricane guide, so please take those with you if you want them. For the people that are online, if you go to our website, you can find our hurricane guide on our website as well. It's available to you as a PDF file. And if you want a hard one, just swing by the EOC. We're happy to get them to you. And I know we're talking a lot about tropical weather. It's amazing some of the storms we had outside of the tropical weather season. So don't let your guard down just because hurricane season is over when it's over. And don't let your guard down as you're approaching hurricane season in the spring. We see some amazing weather out here year round, and the impacts are the same. They might be forecast or presented a little differently, but life-threatening impacts are still there. So never let your guard down year round out here. It's an amazing place to live, and it brings us some really amazing weather. Keep your guard up. And what you heard about today about above ground winds, all of that, doesn't matter if it's in July, August, or September, or December, or February. The only big real difference is it's really colder in those months. And to me, it's a little more hazardous because you don't want to be out in that cold when that water's coming. So don't just think about it, what you heard today, as just about hurricane season.
Anything else, Keith? We've muted you, so you're good to go. Really appreciate that insight. Any other comments from the audience, in person or online? Otherwise, we will wrap things up. And like I said, this will be definitely on our YouTube channel and then through Dare County as well. So it'll be easily accessible. If you found out about the class on our website, the Hurricane Forums website, it will also be posted there as well. So it'll be in multiple places. So I don't see anything. So we'll wrap things up and head to my favorite place after the talk, right? We'll like to eat. So appreciate everybody joining us tonight. Again, please share this information with other folks that were not here. And we will see some of you down in Buxton tomorrow at 6. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
Nice job.
So you have a
That was nice.